fool. Push down your can't you see? Damn yourself.
Please don't call. Isn't there a catch or something you pull out?
Can't find one. So give me that X.
Yeah.
Take care, don't hit the pilot. Leave it to me. By God, you may have killed it.
Oh, boss.
It slipped.
I warned you.
Well, we can get at him now. Wait, there's some hot kind of button here. He's cutting something, a plane on fire. Back, for God's sake, quick, quick!
Get back, Smith. Get back, husband.
What should we do? What should we do?
We can't leave it like this. We must try something. Too late now. There's nothing you can do now.
Only we'd known how to get him out. If only we'd known.
Double three wanted. Good shot, sir.
Yes. We'd only known how.
Yes, that's true. Tough luck on that chap having known around who knew.
2 months ago now. I still can't go through a night without dreaming about it. That plane on fire and
If only I hadn't used that axe. There was nothing wrong with using the axe. That was quite sensible. It was the way you used it. I suppose I was really to blame if I hadn't started pushing things about. No, neither was it your fault that you happened to find a button of some kind around and in the excitement pressed it. It was just unfortunate. You know, it's far better than leave any mechanism alone until you're quite certain what it is.
It's working. It's terrible to think of another plane crashing around here while we... Couldn't you tell us how to set about a rescue in a proper way?
Yes, I'd be very pleased to. I think I can give you a pretty good idea if you can spare the time. We can certainly do that. Well, suppose we start with the type that crashed on your farm. Let's see, a Spitfire, wasn't it?
yes.
I'll try to give you the routine in the form of what one might term a drill. Suppose we imagine a demonstration on an undamaged plane. On arrival, the rescuer should take up a position on the port or left-hand side of the machine. Frequently, the hood covering the cockpit has just been thrown back by the pilot himself just before crashing. But if that has not been done, it is necessary to press the small button which is on the pilot's side of the rear vision mirror. Then slide the hood back. This might need considerable force. By chance, however, the hood, through some misfortune, may have become jammed. It will then be necessary, by means of any handy instrument, to break a hole in the perspex, and this should be done through the forward top of the hood. It's worth remembering that the special type of glass, or perspex, as it is called in use on planes, has, when broken, very ragged edges, capable of inflicting severe cuts. Always, therefore, when breaking in, make a fairly large hole, so that a hand and arm can be introduced without danger of injury. When the hole is made, push the hand through and pull firmly on the jettison release, which will be found at the front of the sliding hood. The entire hood can then be lifted free and thrown aside. This may also prove impossible, in which case entry must be forced. The small door on the side of the cockpit can then be opened by pushing down on the lever inside the door. Should it be found impossible to open the door, a small crowbar will be discovered attached to the inside. This can be used to prise the door open and can also be used effectively on any other obstruction which may be encountered. It is first necessary to release the pilot from his safety harness and then from his parachute harness. Taking the safety harness first of all, this consists of webbing approximately over the pilot's stomach. The release consists of a spring pin inserted through a hole in a projecting stud, which merely has to be withdrawn. The harness falls away. Then comes the parachute harness release. This takes the form of a disc, again approximately over the pilot's stomach, which must be rotated fully in a clockwise direction. It is then given a smart knock towards the pilot's body, which releases the harness, and the straps fall away. The dinghy on which the pilot sits is attached by tape and dog lead clip to the pilot's main west. This will be found on the pilot's waist on his right-hand side and must be detached. It is easy to see how the harness, combined with the weight and bulk of the parachute and dinghy, must seriously hinder rescue. Another way of attaching the dinghy to the pilot is by means of a spring clip. The spring barrel, not the lead itself, is shifted outwards. Next, remove the pilot's helmet and attachments. To do this, release simple press start on lower right-hand side of pilot's helmet, thus releasing the chin strap, then lift off as carefully as possible in case of head or neck injuries. It is vital to see that the pilot's legs and feet are free. If not, the obstructing parts must be moved, and in such a way as to avoid injury to the pilot. It should then be possible to lift the pilot out of the cockpit, which can more easily be accomplished by straddling the fuselage and lifting him out, holding him under the armpits. If available, another helper should guide the legs and take the weight. The lifting should be done as gently as circumstances allow. Always presume injuries, should the pilot be unconscious and unable to advise on his own condition. If the aircraft is lying on its back, If the aircraft is lying on its back, endeavour to lift up the tail slowly. It is then necessary for someone to crawl underneath and open the cockpit hood, as described previously. Now, since the pilot is hanging in his safety harness upside down, very great care must be taken when pulling out the release pin so that he doesn't drop on his head. By the way, it's quite useless to try and lift this type of aircraft by one of the wings. When free of the cockpit, carry him to a safe distance from the plane. If no house or shelter is close to hand, lay him down and keep him as dry and warm as possible with coats or anything else that may be available. Then awaits the ambulance. Should there, however, be evidence of some more or less minor injuries, obviously requiring first aid, it is well worthwhile looking for the first aid box. This will be found by opening a small panel in the fuselage situated on the port or left-hand side and towards the rear. Well, that in brief is how to release the pilot from the Spitfire, and the general procedure holds good for all types of fighters. Of course, there are differences with other planes, particularly with regard to the method of entry. For instance, take this Typhoon. Approach should be made on the starboard or right-hand side of plane. If both the windows are closed, a door can be opened by means of a hand grip on the outside. If the window is down, the door latch can be released by means of a red lever, situated immediately above and behind the pilot's head. Once the door is open, the hood itself lifts up. If the doors are in some way jammed, the only means of ingress is to smash open a window. There are two small levers situated right and left of the cockpit, immediately forward of the doors. If these are pulled, both doors and roof can be lifted off in their entirety and thrown aside. Easy access to the pilot is thus obtained. Now again, let's consider this Beaufighter. As you see, it is of a decidedly different type and carries a crew of two. The normal entry in this case is from below, but it is rare indeed for this to be since crashed. In this case, the rescuer must go up on the starboard or right-hand side wing. A small red lever is well in evidence at the bottom of the window. There is no means of reaching this except by breaking the glass around it. The lever is pushed to release side panel. This done, a lever situated top center of the opposite or port side window is moved backwards, releasing the safety catch. Meanwhile, if there is more than one rescuer to hand, someone else should be attending to the observer. A hole must be broken in the observation dome, in the port or left-hand side of the plane. At the edge of the fuselage are two small levers, one to the front and one to the rear. When these are pulled, the dome can be lifted on hinges. The observer must be released from his harness in the way already described. It may be that when the plane crashed, the observer was engaged on other duties somewhere forward in the body of the plane, in which case the rescuers must enter through the dome and search for him. So you see there are certain differences to be contended with depending on the type of aircraft that may have crashed. But to a great extent, once the principles of rescue procedure are understood, common sense and a cool head will get over most of the difficulties, such as finding a means of entry to the aircraft. Well, I hope I've made myself pretty clearly understood.
Thanks, that'll help a lot. We shan't feel so...
Apart from disturbing something which may help the experts in diagnosing the cause of the crash, as I've said before, there's always the chance of something happening which might have serious consequences.
Oh, I quite understand that point. But suppose, for example, we see signs of fire.
Well, if there's a fire in the aircraft, it's the job of the fire brigade. They've got the equipment for dealing with it and should be notified at once.
By the way, I suppose if you hear the sound of ammunition exploding, that pretty well means the end, and the only thing to do is to run for it, eh?
On the contrary. Now, I saw a demonstration of that very thing. I didn't quite realize the situation myself until I saw it. A pile of ammunition was exploded by heat. Bullets flew in all directions, but with comparatively little force. But unless the bullet passes through a gun barrel, there is practically no velocity.
I suppose if we see a plane crash, the first thing a civilian should do is to get in touch with the nearest RAF station.
No. That only applies to naval and army units. They get in touch with RAF stations. Civilians should report to the police, giving as clear a description of the location as possible.
You've mentioned once or twice the matter of the actual rescue of members of the crew. Now, we're a fairly representative crowd here tonight. Police, Home Guard, ARP, and not forgetting the ladies. But I doubt that any of us know the right way to get you fellows out of the crash.
Well, if it wouldn't bore you, I'd give you a good idea of that now.
It certainly wouldn't do that. We'd be grateful, wouldn't we?
Well, now suppose we start with this fella, the Lancaster. The main entrance door is situated on the starboard or right-hand side of the plane and towards the rear of the fuselage. On the door is a small spring flap, which, when lifted, discloses the handle. In most cases, the door opens inwards. Immediately to the left of the door going in hangs an axe, which can be used to break through any obstruction with which the rescuers may be faced. Immediately below this is the first aid box. A point worth noting is that access can also be obtained to this room from the outside by means of pulling a handle on left of door. Going towards the rear, two small light doors give entry to the gun turret. Two sliding doors in the turret itself must be opened. This may already have been done by the gunner himself. If not, a sliding catch or lever will be found, usually on the right-hand panel. To release the gunner from his seat, the broad strap which passes over his thighs must be undone. This is effected by pulling the two inserted fabric pegs out of the buckle. The belt then falls away. Going forward, the mid-turret gunner may be found in his fighting station. As in the previous case, undo the broad strap over legs. The seat in the turret must be swiveled round and up towards the gunner's back. This is accomplished by pressing in the knob which will be found center forward of the seat. The gunner can then be lowered down and carried out. Another gunner may or may not be in his seat immediately beneath the top mid-turret gunner. If not, look for him. The wireless operator will probably be found at his station. But remember that with the exception of the pilot, there is practically no certainty of finding any particular member of the crew in any definite position. It is, therefore, essential to make a quick but careful search throughout the entire fuselage. Above the wireless operator's head is an astro hatch, which can be broken in and used as an escape hatch. In the next compartment, the pilot will be discovered. It is first necessary to release the pilot from his safety harness, and then from his parachute harness. Taking the safety harness first of all, this consists of webbing, which passes over the shoulders and thighs, meeting in front of the pilot. The release consists of a spring pin inserted through a hole in a projecting stud, which merely has to be withdrawn. The harness falls away. Then comes the parachute harness release. This takes the form of a disc, approximately over the pilot's stomach, which must be rotated fully in a clockwise direction. It is then given a sharp knock towards the pilot's body, which releases the harness and the straps fall away. Next, remove the pilot's helmet and attachments. To do this, release simple press stud on lower right-hand side of pilot's helmet. It is vital to see that the pilot's legs and feet are free. If not, the obstructing parts must be moved and in such a way as to avoid injury to the pilot. Windows on either side of the pilot provide a means of escape, opened by pulling the slide bar across. If this should prove difficult, use the axe. But remember that if a proper way of opening a panel or door is provided, it is usually quicker than by using force. On the other hand, in certain circumstances, any of the larger windows could be knocked out with an axe or similar implement. This particularly applies when normal entrance cannot be obtained. There is also a top escape hatch immediately above and behind the pilot's head. A possible means of escape for any member of the crew discovered down in the nose of the plane could be effected by smashing through the perspex panel. Although if there are no serious obstructions, it would be quicker probably to lift him up the steps to the pilot's station and so out. It is worth making a note of two other top escape hatches. The first is situated immediately above the rest bunk. It can be opened by a quick twist handle and jettisoned upwards. Another escape hatch is situated 6 feet forward of the mid-upper turret and opens in a similar fashion. When lifting rescued men, should they be unconscious, always presume serious injuries. It is therefore essential to handle them as gently as time and circumstances allow. If no shelter or house is close to hand, keep them warm with coats or anything else available until the ambulance arrives.
Well, I hope that gives you some idea of how to deal with the rescue of a crew from a crashed Lancaster. Of course, you'll appreciate there are other types of bombers, but it would take us days to explain them all. However, I'd just like to give you the salient points from, say, the Sterling.
Here she is. Now, for instance, the door is in this case on the left or port side. The main thing is that you know there is a door. Even in the same make of machine, the position sometimes varies. So if you don't find it exactly where you expect, look around. On the rear gun turret door, the catch is on the left-hand side. There again, the position sometimes varies, so look carefully. The main escape hatches are 1. Over the pilot's seat. 2. The astrodome situated in the center section. 3. Hatch immediately forward of the upper turret. 4. Bomb aimer's panel. If you intend using this, remember that there is no means of opening it except by braking. As a final example, we might consider the Wellington. Here you have no side door. Normal entry is obtained by means of a hatch underneath. Unless such hatches are invariably out of reach or damaged in a crash, it is better to go straight to the windows above the pilot. Or the astrodome, situated halfway down the fuselage. Should the pilot be tackled first, climb up and break in the forward top panel. Reach in and pull down the red-painted lever above and in front of the pilot's head. The hood then opens up in two halves, and access is gained to the crew.
Oh, just one more point while I think of it. If you get to an aeroplane which is very badly damaged, either by a crash or by fire,